Om. 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 Om Sahana Vavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shantihi. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudirayet. Okay, Gurudev, are you able to see the screen? Yes, Pramalaji. Yeah, okay. Because yesterday we did this where Shabda is the pramana. Just give me a second. So just go through this one more time and then go further. Knowledge is the only way to destroy the destruction of self-ignorance. A person who takes himself or herself to be the ego thinks, I am only this much. Nothing more is known about oneself than this. This ignorance, because of which the ego is there, is destroyed by the vritti, I am Brahman, which is born out of the teaching. With the destruction of this ignorance, the notion that I am the ego disappears. Nothing more is necessary. What happens to the ego in the wake of self-knowledge? When the ego comes, it comes. And when it goes, it goes. But you are no longer the ego because ignorance about the Atma has already been destroyed. You know that the ego is Atma, whereas Atma is not the ego. Knowing this, you do not get lost in or caught up by the ego and its activities. This knowledge of Atma once gained is never lost because you have no more ignorance about Atma. Even if the ego comes, Atma cannot be mistaken as the ego anymore. Ego is Atma, but Atma does not become the ego just because the ego came. Just because a perception comes or an inference is made, just an action is done or a result is gained, just because something ego. Everything is Atma eva idam sarvam, and Atma is not any of them. When any action is done, the ego is there, but Atma is free from all action because it is not the ego. Similarly, the means of
What? Breaking too much, Ramraji?
The voice is breaking.
Yes, yes.
Is it okay? Tell me now whether it is okay or not. When any action is done, the ego is there, but Atma is free from all action because it is not the ego. Similarly, the means of doing an action or its result is also Atma, whereas Atma is neither the means, the doing, nor the result. This truth being known, the person sees actionlessness in action. Is it better now?
Yes, see.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yes.
Okay. So, while everything is dependent upon Atma, Atma is independent of any of these. So that is what we need to understand. Because why? The whole creation is dependent upon Atma, right? The whole creation. So nothing is independent of Atma. Knowledge is the only way to destroy ignorance about Atma. Agama alone, knowledge in the form of words alone, because you are not really wielding a pramana here. Rather, you are exposing yourself to the pramana, to the words. In fact, you are so exposed that you get shot by the spear of Brahman called Brahmastra. In the Ramayana, Rama used the Brahmastra to kill Ravana. Astra means a weapon that leaves your hand, and Shastra is that which remains in your hand. The various forms of practice, such as prayers, rituals, and so on, are called Shastra. Whereas the statement, Tattvam Asi, you are that, is called Astra. It comes from a teacher and hits you. It is intended to hit you, in fact. The statement comes out like a bullet and hits the exposed, the ego, causing it to die. When the ego gets exposed to the teaching, Tattvam Asi, it naturally dies, just as the many-headed demon Ravana did when he was shot by the Brahmastra. Tattvamasi, the Brahmastra, destroys the ego called Ravana once and for all. Rama tried various methods to destroy his enemy Ravana, but nothing happened. He would remove one head, but by the time he destroyed the second head, the first one was back again. This is like trying to remove all our desires. Just when we think one is gone, we one has popped up in its place. And where do desires come from? origin of desires is avidya. So as long as there is avidya, there is karma. And as long as there is karma, there is karma. So this cycle continues. Still, that avidya is destroyed by this Brahmastra. So finally, Rama was told to use the Brahmastra. Only then did Ravana die. Only then did Rama get back his joy, Sita. When the weapon Tattvamasi is used against the exposed ego, it is destroyed. Thus, you need not do anything except expose yourself to the teaching. This difference between employing perception and inference and exposing yourself to the teaching is what distinguishes this particular means of knowledge from all others. Exposing oneself to the teaching is lending oneself to an entirely different type of pramana operation. It comes from outside and destroys the ego. That you are Brahman. For this, no action is performed. You just expose yourself to the pramana with Shraddha, the faith that the pramana will give you self-knowledge. Knowledge and error cannot coexist. Shraddha is not doing anything and at the same time being totally alive to the pramana, having abandoned prejudices about you, the world, and God. In fact, it is Shraddha that grants you this type of exposure. It is the attitude behind the exposure that brings one the knowledge. And against this knowledge, the ego is helpless because it is an error that has been corrected by the knowledge. No error is capable of standing as a coexistent partner to knowledge because knowledge and error cannot coexist. Nor can the error come back once knowledge has taken place. An object of error cannot return to the same locus where knowledge already is. You may question this statement using the rope snake example. You may mistake a piece of rope for a snake and remove the error by seeing that the snake is actually a rope. But the very next day, you may again make the same error. This is possible because the existence of both the rope and the snake depends on a means of knowledge, your perception. Because the defect in your perception can occur again, the error can also occur again. Whereas the existence of Atma does not depend on any pramana. The self is not first seen by you and then recognized, as is the case with the rope snake. The self always is. Once the ignorance about the nature of the self is removed, there is no question of ignorance coming back.
Jai Gurudev, self always is. That word I missed. Self always
The self always is. It is self-evident, no?
is okay. Isness.
Is. The self always is. So the difference between the rope snake analogy, where today you have realized that the rope is not the snake, it is a rope. Tomorrow you might mistake it again. Because why you're depending upon your perception. That perception depends on, and because there is defect in your perception can occur again, the error can also occur again. In the first place, it was because of a defect in the perception. It appears as though because of not enough light, you saw that the rope looked like the snake. Same thing can happen the next day as well. That is because what is the pramana there? Your sight, eyes are the pramana. And because the eyes have this defect, so this might be repeated. Whereas existence of Atma does not depend on any pramana. See, the existence of rope or existence of snake depends upon our pramana, the sight. Whereas existence of Atma is self-evident. It doesn't depend on any pramana. So once that knowledge is gained, it just remains. It does not go and come back again. The self is not first seen by you and then recognized, as is the case with the rope snake. The self always is. Once the ignorance about the nature of the self is removed, there is no question of ignorance coming back. That is, once that light is brought in, darkness goes, and that goes forever. With reference to objects, out of sight can be out of mind. But Atma is never out of sight or out of mind. You may be out of mind, but you can never be out of Atma, the self. This self is not what is meant when people talk about the psychological self, biological self, anatomical self, familial self, or genetic self. These are subject to defects of every kind: genetic, pathological, physiological, and mental. Therefore, such a self is always unacceptable to you. Even anatomically, you cannot accept yourself. Your nose is not of the right shape, your hair is not of the right color, and so on. But this is not what we are discussing here. The self is different from all of this. Everything is the self, and therefore, there is no way of being out of oneself. When the ignorance goes, the ego also goes in terms of knowing I am not the ego. The ego that comes after this knowledge has taken place is not the same ego that was there before. It has become an enlightened ego. Because there is knowledge that there is no real self-existent ego, you refer to it as enlightened, Jivan Mukta, one who was liberated while living. This is the person that Krishna refers to as a Buddhiman in this verse. So earlier we discussed that where does the ego disappear? There has to be someone who recognizes. So does the ego just disappear? If that is the case, who is it that recognizes the Atma? So that is the enlightened ego. The ego only transforms from being a limited ego from a jiva to a jivan mukta. So the enlightened ego looks at the whole world as Atma eva idam sarvam. And that includes the antakarana. It includes the body, mind, sense, ego complex. And sees that all that is mithya. And this self is unlike the other self that we normally associate ourselves with: anatomical, genetic, biological, psychological. All of these are subject effects. Whereas the true self is full, complete, secure. Knowing I am not the doer has nothing to do with action. Buddhiman, the wise person, is one who sees that even the so-called akarma, inaction, is nothing but karma. Yaha akarmani karma pashe saha buddhiman. And Atma being akarta, and because one understands this fact about Atma, he or she sees akarma in karma itself. And because of that, he is a buddhiman. Yaha karma saha buddhiman. The person recognizes the fact of Atma being actionless, and that recognition, if it really is a recognition, is not altered whether karma is done or not done. This recognition has nothing to do with karma. It is the recognition of the Swarupa, the nature of Atma. We saw that for any action to take place, there has to be some movement, some change. Whereas Atma is Purna, Nirvikalpa, without any modification, without any thought. So therefore, the Jivan Mukta, when he acts out of this recognition. So he, even if he does action, he sees a karma in that. And he sees, so even in the so-called akarma, he sees karma. So see, again, we are taking the literal meaning of action and inaction. It is with reference to Atma. It is with reference to action, there is inaction. And with reference to inaction, there is action. You do not become a non-doer. You all are already a non-doer. When we talk about the Swarupa of Atma, we say that Atma is essentially a karta. This statement is made with reference to kartritva, doership, that is superimposed on the Atma due to ignorance. Generally, one has the mistaken notion, I am a doer, aham karta. And the correction of this mistake makes you see that you are a karta. That you are a karta is a fact to be recognized. Therefore, you cannot ask, when will I be able to become a karta? Nowhere is it said that you have to become an akarta, a non-doer. Only that you must see akarma in karma itself. There is no question of you're becoming a karta. You are a karta. Atma is a karta, and to be a karta, you only have to see the fact. Then Buddhiman, who have buddhis but do not use them. So you do not need to become a karta. You are a karta. You just have to recognize this fact. Understanding reality requires thinking. The meaning of buddhiman is something like that of dhanavan, a rich person, as we said before. To have money does not mean that you only if you have money to give are you a rich person. A man who has money to spend on himself and on others when necessary is a rich man. Whereas a man with money who does not think he has enough to spend on himself or for a cause is simply a moneyed man. He is not a rich man. The difference between a moneyed person and a rich person is important to understand. The rich person is one who feels rich. A man who has only a rupee in his pocket and gives it to someone who has not eaten for 2 days is a rich man because although he had so little, he had money to spare. He has no money, but he is rich. He is ready to spend. Whereas another man may have millions of rupees and may not be able to spend it on himself or on others. Such a person is moneyed, but not miser, kripana. Similarly, in the Brihadaranyaka Yajnavalkya tells Gargi, what does he say? I think it is someone posted, Sarlaji, I think, posted in the group. That the person who leaves the physical body without realizing himself as the Atman is a Kripana. Whereas the one who recognizes himself as the Atma is a Brahmana.
It rhymes so well, Kripana and Brahmana.
Yeah. Yova etadaksharam gargi aviditva aviditva vinashyati sa kripanaha saha etadaksharam viditva sa brahmana. I may not be saying it the right way, not the correct terms that were used, but the gist is that the person who leaves this physical body dies a miser if he dies without recognizing himself. The one who dies not knowing Brahman is a miser. Why is he or she considered a miser? Because the person has money is of no use to a person who will not spend it. What is the use of having an intellect if you cannot or will not use it? One who has a buddhi and does not spend it is also a miser. Such a person uses as little intellect as possible, keeping it as it is. A man may exercise his intellect just a little to learn something in order to please his parents. He may even get a job, but that is the maximum he is willing to use his intellect for. He does not read anything, not even the newspaper. He sits staring at the TV without using his intellect at all. Why should he use it? For this kind of life, he need not use it at all. No real thinking is ever done by such a person. Real thinking is thinking about realities. Because you are dealing with reality, there must be thinking. You are dealing only with if the realities are not known, you are fired. One who thinks about the fundamental reality of himself, the world, and God, who knows what it is all about, is a buddhiman. This person is rich. He or she has an intellect to use and to spare. The buddhiman has used the buddhi for himself or herself and shares the knowledge gained with others. So what is required again for us to be a buddhiman? We are actually buddhiman. To recognize that we are buddhiman is number one, is to expose ourselves to this pramana, to the Shabda pramana. And that exposing ourselves is through Shravana. Like we were saying yesterday, a person who is not exposed to this knowledge at all, doesn't know that there is this aspect of Brahman, Maya, Jagat, Mithya, Satya, he's totally unaware of this. He's only dealing with shadows, not with reality. Reality, we saw what is real, what is Satya, Kalatraya, with all those definitions that we learned in Tattva Bodh. So one who is not exposed to this is in the dark. He is like having a lot of money. He has an intellect, but he's not rich. He's not using it. He dies a miser. So even a little exposure to this knowledge, which is what Krishna says. He says, Swalpamapyasya dharmasya trayate mahato bhayat. Even a little exposure to this knowledge will save you from that great calamity. Because see, once you are exposed to this, it is only again with Shraddha, because you have Shraddha, that you actually even get exposed to this knowledge. So none of us sitting here should think, oh, I don't have Shraddha. It's only because of that we are here. And it is that Shraddha that will take us forward.
Hey, Gurudev, when you are saying the list of things, which we know, I felt so great, the Brahmans, Mayas, what is this, all this. Many people, they don't know all these things, right? We know so much. So nice.
Correct. But at the same time, again, see, having exposed to this knowledge, again, this path is so razor sharp in the sense, see, unless we are pursuing it in the right way, otherwise we'll just become armchair Vedantins. We just learn a few concepts and just that. So pursuing it in the right way. That is why we require the presence of a guru. Otherwise, everyone can just read the Shastra and then get it, right? So, but the presence of a guru is required to guide you, to ensure that you're not slipping away from the path, not getting into some wrong understanding. And see, we've seen this happen in history so many times. I think in the autobiography of a yogi, there is one person who has, and Gurudev talks about it in Patanjali Yoga Sutras, where you develop siddhis as you are in this path. And there are some who get so caught up in their siddhis that they lose track of the actual goal. They think that is it. They get caught up with that yoga maya. So, and this person thinks he starts getting a lot of followers because he's doing a lot of miracles. He's using his siddhis for that. But on this path, all those anima, garima, lakima, all those some 9 kinds of siddhis might happen. But seeing them also as part of this mithya, and staying steadfast. It's like the Guru Mandala, basically. So on this path, you'll have a lot of attractions, aversions, siddhis that might come to you.
Yeah, so these are just a distraction for them.
Yeah, they're all just distractions. So the focus has to be that one point. That is why that Vyavasayatmika Buddhi is so important. Otherwise, we'll be fritting away our lifespan. Therefore, Avyavasayatmika Buddhi. Like how Gurudev says, you're digging wells, you're trying to find water, you're digging here and there and 100 different places. You're just digging some shallow wells. But when you dig deep at one place, so a buddhiman is one who has used the buddhi for himself or herself and shares this knowledge gained with others. Thus, in this verse, Krishna is saying that among the people, all of whom have buddhis, this person is the only one who is wise. Saha buddhiman manushyeshu. Just as some people have money without being rich, some people have buddhis without being wise. The buddhiman, however, is a yogi, a kritsna karma krit, one who has done all that is to be done. By discovering the Atma to be akarta, the wise person has completely destroyed all the karmas. The self being full, purna, there is nothing more for this person to do at any time. The self as akarta is not a sometime affair. Once the self is known to be akarta, it will never become karta again. Again, this requires us to have shraddha, that once this knowledge is gained, there is no looking back. Yam gatva nanivartate, tad dhama paramam mama. So that place, once you've reached or attained, again, all these terms are not really absolutely true in the sense because you're already there. You are Atma. You just have to recognize it. So once that recognition is there, there is no looking back. So you don't become a karta again. When we say Atma is asanga, we mean that it is free from being a karta and bhokta, which means it is free from sukha and dukkha, samsara. When it is said that Atma is always Ananda, it means that Atma is Purna, full, limitless. This knowledge makes a person a kritsna karma krit. Everything that is to be done has been done in one stroke. Nothing needs to be done for the person to be happy. Whatever karmas the person had to fulfill by taking many births have all been fulfilled. All karma has been completely taken care of. Any activity he or she undertakes later is born of joy, not for joy, not for gaining some security and happiness. The person may continue to do the same thing he or she did before. What one does not alter the fact that one is a karta. We should see this difference. A Jivan Mukta may continue to be doing some actions in the world, but he is from the space of actionlessness, from the space of being a karta. As long as there is a doer, a karta, there is action, even in so-called inaction. A wise person, a buddhiman, is able to see this. I am not doing anything also implies a karta. Both karma and akarma become karma in vision of the wise. Wherever there is doership, there is always some action or the other. Therefore, everything becomes action, be it action or inaction. The Buddhiman is also able to see akarma in both karma and akarma because for such a person, there is no doership in the self. So with reference to Atma, there is akarma only, both in karma and akarma. Atmani kartritva abhava. He or she knows that while karta, the doer, is non-separate from the self is not the doer. Because the person has this knowledge, he or she is said to be wise among human beings and is described as one who has done everything that is to be done, without exception. Saha buddhiman manushyeshu, saha kritsna karma krit. When there is no doer, there is no action. When there is no kartritva in the Atma, what karma is there for the person to do? If I'm not the karta, how can I perform action even if all four Vedas enjoin me? If they say, oh karta, please do this ritual, I can only respond if I am the karta. When someone says, John, please come here, only John will come, no one else. Just as an individual is being addressed here, so too the Vedas also address the individual. O person, please do these karmas. Karma kuru. And who is the person the Vedas are addressing? Is it the Satchid Ananda Atma or the Karta? They are definitely addressing the Karta. And what happens if there is no Karta? There is no response. A wise person does not respond because he is not a Karta. Only when there is a Karta, a doer, does the addressing of the Vedas have an effect. Otherwise, it is useless. The enjoined karmas are also useless because they are all as well done for the kritsna karma krit. Even karma yoga no longer applies to the wise person. Karma yoga again is one of the lifestyles. Sannyasa is another lifestyle. But once this person, either a karma yogi or a sannyasi, realizes himself as Atman, then there is nothing else left for him to do. The kritsna karma krit. And none of the Vedas, the whole karma kanda part of the Vedas applies to him. Because that is only addressing the karta. There is no karma yoga for the jnani. A karma yogi is one who takes care of his or her raga dveshas, likes and dislikes, by doing what is to be done with a proper attitude towards the actions and also towards their results. The Vedas address both the karma yogi because both of them have kartritva to worship. Only the jnani, the one who sees inaction, is not addressed by the Vedas because such a person sees Atma as a karta, the non-performer of action. That is why karma yogi also has all the nitya karma to do, right? It's only the sannyasi that doesn't is exempt from all the nitya naimitika karmas. Whereas a karma yogi does all the nitya naimitika karmas. Why? Because there is still that doership. And it is that doership that is addressed by the Vedas there. If I am the non-performer of action, any enjoining done by the Vedas or anything else does not come to me at all. Therefore, whatever was to be done before is all over. I am a kritsna karma krit. There is nothing more for me to do. And anything that was to be done later is also taken care of. So the whole Sanchita is burnt like a roasted seed. There's nothing more left for him to do. Before knowledge, all actions are meant for me, for my sukha, my happiness. I want some cheerfulness, some tranquility, antahkarana shuddhi. Then, with such a mind, I can achieve self-knowledge, which is seeing non-action in action. Karmani akarma darshanam. To see non-action in action is to understand that I am a karta, a non-doer. Thus, for the sake of self-knowledge alone, I perform all the karmas that are to be done by me. So this is for a sadhak, before he gains knowledge. So everything is done for the sake of self-knowledge alone. So the karma yogi does his actions to get rid and neutralize his raga dveshas with a proper attitude while pursuing self-knowledge. Even a kami, one who is not interested. Just let me know what the time is. I can't see the time here. 1 second. Huh? Where is the time? Yeah, we have about 10 minutes left. So even a kami, one who is not interested in self-knowledge, but just wants to fulfill certain desires, has to perform certain actions, which are meant for the kami, the one who has desires. Because the person feels inadequate, he or she has certain desires that necessitate the performance of action. Suppose, however, you understand that the self is not inadequate, that it is adequate or more than adequate, then there is no desire for action. In fact, because the self is full, words like adequate and inadequate do not even come into the picture. Therefore, the person is this, there is nothing done. Karyam karma na vidyate. When the mind, meaning the ahankara or the ego, is resolved in the atma, there is nothing for the person to do. In the wake of knowledge, ahankara, the I notion, the karta is resolved in the atma, and there is no longer any question of atma being the karta. When there is no karta, there is nothing to be done, which is why the person is called kritsna karma krit. He or she has done everything that is to be done in the past as well as in the future. The wise person's will has served its purpose. This person for whom there is nothing to be done is a jnani, a wise person. Because there is nothing to be done for such a person, he or she is free to do a lot of things. When there is nothing to be done, what is there that is not to be done? There is no mandate for a jnani, enjoining him to do any particular action or prohibiting him from doing any particular action. His or her job is over. Hereafter, the person's will has no place at all. Whatever will the person had before the knowledge took place has been successfully used up, having served its purpose. So he is free to do whatever. That is why you have all kinds of enlightened masters. Some who were like Ramana Maharshi, very mauna. They were just silent, of men of small words. They wouldn't speak much. There were others who would just get into samadhi and not come back into the world. And there are others like Gurudev and all those that went into the world to teach and propagate. So he or she is free to do a lot of things. There is no mandate for a jnani enjoining him to do any particular action or prohibiting him from doing any particular action. See, that is why when initially I used to have this doubt, in the beginning, that how come Gurudev is doing this, all these, homas and yajnas and all that. But this is the answer, where there is nothing prohibiting him from doing it. He again is not doing it as kam karma. He's doing it for loka kalyanartha. And he's setting an example for everybody else to follow. All those people that have left ritualism, saying it is all humbug, he's bringing them all back into this fold, because this sets up a set of a sense of discipline. Like we've had so many discussions about whether to light a lamp, whether to do our daily puja. Is it really required? Yes, from one angle, when you see, all that is not required at all. But from another angle, when you see, yes, it does bring in that sanctity. A house which is cleaned and has all the rangoli put is different from a house where there is none. It makes a difference, right? Same
That's what
with lighting a lamp.
Gurudev, saying even the great Advaita, Vedanta, like Adi Shankara, even he established all the great temples.
Right, right. In fact, we just started watching Adi Shankara on the Art of Living app, and how the situation was before the advent of Adi Shankara was terrible. When Ashoka was made king and he decided to take to ahimsa, he said, "I'm not going to fight anymore." How there was that confusion in society. No one was doing. The Kshatriyas were not protecting the kingdom, and there were invaders invading the country, invading the land. So basically, getting the system into order. The world has been created by Brahman, and there is an inbuilt order in this creation, that interdependence. Like we learned in the third chapter, right? When you do yajnas, you propitiate the devas. And when you propitiate the devas, they in turn give you the results. Like unless we do those yajnas, there's not going to be rain. And if there's no rain, there is no food. So all of this is like interdependent. And therefore, the whole society is divided into, um, classified into 4 different groups based on the karma and guna, not based on janma. Guna karma vibhagayo. So this is why sannyasis do not leave wills when they die. They have no will to leave a will. So their will is not, there's no question of free will. There is no karma left for them. So there is no also will for them to do anything. They just do whatever will the person had before the knowledge took place has been successfully used up, having served its purpose. That's why sannyasis leave no wills. Only when will is there can there be a will. Sometimes, if the sannyasi has many disciples, not leaving a will can cause problems as to who is to succeed him or her, and so on. Whereas, if he or she is a traditional sannyasi, a parampara sannyasi, and the disciples have been taught well, there will be no problem. There will be no vying for the sannyasi seat because there is no seat. There is no organization for a seat to be there. Each disciple is the seat, in fact. I think that's what happened with Adi Shankara. He had a set of disciples, and each of them was a teacher in his own, in his or her own right. In the Hindu tradition, Vaidika Dharma, there is no organization or hierarchical structure. Isn't it? So in Sanatana Dharma, what is there is only knowledge. And people have passed on this knowledge from generation to generation. There is no one to say, oh, he's the one who started this. No papacy, diocese, parish, or congregation. Dharma, of course, has no organization. And in that dharma, there is a person, a sannyasi, who also has no organization. The very word sannyasi means that the person just lives with only the sky above him or her. The person is the only organization that is there. And if he has any disciples, every disciple there may be is an organization. This is how the parampara tradition is. The sannyasi does not even need the text of the Upanishads everything is in the form of understanding within the person. There is no organizational head other than this head, and there is no being referred to here is a Vidvat Sannyasi, a person who has realized, who's recognized himself. We'll stop here. Any sharing? We have 2 minutes.
Say Gurudev, yesterday I heard one beautiful discourse, and in that Gurudev had said that the one whose antakarana is Shuddha, for him every place he visits becomes a tirthasthana. Everybody whom he visits becomes a Brahman. So very nicely Swami Tejomayananji had put it in the he is a poet. Tirthe tirthe nirmalam brahma vrundam vrunde vrunde tattva chintanuvadah vade vade jayate tattva bodhah bodhe bodhe bhasate chandrachudah. Chandrachudah means Lord Shiva.
Shiva, yeah.
Yeah. So whoever he meets, for him it is Brahman, the Shiva. Yeah.
Very beautiful. That is what, no? They come from the standpoint of Atma eva idam sarvam. Sarvam brahmamayam. Everything is Brahman. So we'll conclude here. Bela, if you are able to, please chant that towards the end. Om Loka Samasta Sukhino Bhavantu. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Tat Sat Shri Krishna Arpanamastu. Jai Gurudev.
एकमेवाद्वितीयं ये ब्रह्मा निर्गुणं निश्चलं निर्विकारम् एकमेवाद्वितीयं ये ब्रह्मा अत्र वेदान्तमेव प्रमाणम् बोधक सद्गुरु तत्त्वनिष्ठः ईश्वरानुगृहीतेन वेद्यम् एकमेवाद्वितीयं ये ब्रह्मा ज्ञानगम्यं तुरीयं हृदयस्थम् आत्मरूपं हि तत् येन ज्ञातम् सोऽद्वनः पारमाप्नोति सत्यम् एकमेवाद्वितीयं ये ब्रह्मा ब्रह्मज्ञस्य तु ब्रह्मैव सर्वं नास्ति मोहो भयं नैव दुःखम् तस्य स्वानन्दमग्नं हि चित्तम् एकमेवाद्वितीयं ये ब्रह्मा निर्गुणं निश्चलं निर्विकारम् एकमेवाद्वितीयं ये ब्रह्मा एकमेवाद्वितीयं ये ब्रह्मा ब्रह्मैव सत्यम्
Jai Gurudev.